This is live with Miami's Community News, and I'm Michael Miller. Our guest today is Michael Gongora from Miami Beach, and you want to be the mayor of Miami Beach.
Absolutely.
So we're going to ask you why in a second, but let's do a little background first. Tell us about your political experience around town and then specifically in Miami Beach.
Well, I'm a native here of Miami-Dade County. I moved to Miami Beach when I was in law school and got active in our community. And at a young age, actually, I became president of the Miami Beach Latin Chamber of Commerce. And that puts you on the map politically.
Yes.
So at that time, some of the old school people, Armando Gutierrez and Bruno Barrero,
Oh, sure.
they contacted me about running for commissioner, which
On the beach.
on the beach, which really wasn't on my radar, but I actually got involved with a friend of mine's campaign, Richard Steinberg,
Sure.
helped him get elected, and then he started putting me on boards and committees. So I served on our zoning board of adjustment, our design review board as a special magistrate over code compliance. And then finally in 2006, a seat opened up on the commission and I made a go for it.
So you must have had that in the back of your mind when you were much younger.
I don't think I did. I never sought out to be even a lawyer as I am now, much less in politics. But my grandfather was actually a commissioner in Cuba before coming to this country. And my other grandfather, my American grandfather, was a preacher. And believe it or not, there's a lot of similarities. I think there was some kind of a vibe between the politics and the preacher that always made me feel drawn to public service.
And what comes to my mind, Martin Luther King and Les Brown, motivational speaker, both black, but both has that spiritual tone to their voice that attracts many, many people because it's pleasantry when you listen, whatever religion you are, to hear your spiritual leader involving us. So there you go, 2006, said, okay, I'm going to go for it. And what happened?
Well, I ran in a five-way race and I was elected to the Miami Beach Commission, which was a wonderful experience, obviously. I mean, when you're new in government, you're trying to figure out what your role is and how to push through an agenda and get things done.
So what was that like, the moment that you said, I won? I'm a Miami Beach commissioner. What was it like inside?
Well, of course, it was very rewarding. We had put forth a lot of hard work, not just me, but my parents, my family, my friends, canvassing and knocking on doors and phone banking. But it was very rewarding that the voters had trusted me to be their voice on the commission. And I took my role very seriously. Miami Beach always has a lot of very interesting things happening. Right away, you were thrown in to a number of contentious items that were happening at that time. We were talking about short-term rentals and noise. Actually, not that different from what we talk about today.
To put it in perspective, what's the approximate annual budget for the city of Miami Beach?
Well, it's grown exponentially. Last year, it was 800 million. I haven't seen the final budget numbers for the upcoming fiscal year, but they told us that the property taxes were up about 10%. So I think that's going to bring us closer to 900 million by the time the final budget numbers come out.
And there's several types of population. You have the ones that claim it as their home and live there. What's that breakdown versus tourists?
As far as the demographics?
We'll talk about perhaps the age group and the nationalities and when tourists come to town, how do you mix all that together?
Well, actually, that's one of the things I love the most about Miami Beach. I love the mix of people. We really are extremely diverse. We're less than 100,000 residents, 90 some odd thousand. Only half are registered to vote. And of that, we're about 40% Hispanic, but we have a very large Jewish population. We have one of the largest LGBTQ populations in South Florida. So we're a big melting pot of all types of people in our city. And it's interesting. I mean, people that I think choose Miami Beach over other coastal communities do so because of that mix and because we have so many interesting things to offer, from shopping to restaurants to nightlife to shows. So it's an exciting place.
And all the tourists, which
Yeah.
is like, wow. people from all over the world go to Miami Beach.
Yeah.
They don't go to South Miami, all right? They go to Miami Beach. So you're on the commission 2006, that's a four-year term.
It is.
And so 2010 comes around and you go, or 2009, you said, I'm ready again.
Yes. Well, actually, I've had a really odd trajectory because when I first came in, I came in on a special election, so it wasn't a full term. So I actually have been elected 3 times between 2006 and 2021, but they were 3 non-consecutive terms. So I have one of the oddest political
You
trajectories.
liked it so much, you kept coming back
I'm
again.
in, I'm out, I'm in, I'm out. But the voters keep asking me to run again, and I do. And it's been interesting, Michael, because I was able to serve with 3 different mayors, I think like 4 or 5 different city managers, 20 some odd different commissioners over the years. So it gives you a real perspective of what works and what doesn't.
Now, one of the things that we know you did in 2013, there's some protection you brought for all people on Miami Beach. Tell us about that.
Yes, in 2013, when I was on the commission, I realized that not all people actually are protected under state and federal law when it comes to housing and employment. So I sponsored a charter amendment to put in the city charter protections for all kinds of people. I didn't want to limit it to anybody. We included protections based on race, based on age, national origin, disability, whether you were LGBTQ, your sexual orientation, your sexual identity. And what was really beautiful for me was it passed with 85% of the vote. The residents came out and said, we are that community, that's who we are, and all people are protected in Miami Beach.
For people maybe a few years older than you, I remember signs that said no Cubans and no blacks. I remember that clearly, and being at the Greyhound bus station downtown, I think they call them colored water fountain, and it was startling, to see that. So I'm happy for all of us that you were there to help protect all of us, because when one is protected, we are all protected under that. So here it is, 2023, you want to be mayor.
Yeah.
What, number one, why? And number two, what do you want to try to get done with you and your teammates?
Well, yes, I want to be mayor primarily because I love my city. I love Miami Beach, and we need good leadership, experienced leadership moving forward. So I made the decision to run, and we have issues like a lot of communities. I mean, first and foremost, we have an issue with public safety. You see the images, especially during spring break. Every year, we see the crime going on down on Ocean Drive in the entertainment district. And while some elected officials have said, oh, I'm afraid, I don't want to go there. No, I want to go there. Ocean Drive is one of the most iconic, famous, beautiful streets in the world, and I want to clean it up. So I have been talking with our police, and I am honored to be the Miami Beach Fraternal Order of Police endorsed candidate. So I'm going to get tough on crime. I'm going to add police officers, add technology that they need, whether it's cameras, license plate readers, a better call center. We're going to give the police the resources they need to make Miami Beach safer. And we're going to message to the world that Miami Beach is safe and it's open for business.
When in the last couple seasons, when there would be those, some violence and some people died with that, it was like a lot of people just got used to it. Well, that's what's going to happen there. But we realized in order to change it, you have to be aggressive and be able to stop it, because one, lives are at stake. Two, you have not just people's physical lives, but their families and their businesses and where they live. Nobody wants to know down the street this is what happened. So now, as far as a campaign, running a campaign, sometimes it can get pretty expensive. How does that work? All right, that you have to raise money to get your message out, because if you can't get your message out, you could be the best candidate in the world, but people got to hear you. So explain to people how that process works.
Yeah, it's very expensive in Miami Beach. For some reason, over the past decade or so, we've had a lot of mega millionaires come in and throw millions, literally millions of dollars at the race to influence the 12 to 13,000 voters that come out and vote in our election. So it happened to me 10 years ago with somebody that spent more than 2 million on their campaign of their own money and more than 2 million through committees. I think it was close to 5 million by the time it was done. And we're seeing that again this year. I have a new multimillionaire that's coming in and throwing money around.
It must be disheartening when you look at it and you're out there and you want to do the right thing and you're working it hard, trying to raise money. Then all of a sudden somebody else is in the picture and says, I got all this money. But there have been plenty of times throughout the world that just because somebody has a lot of money doesn't mean they're going to win. So what is it? What message do you want to deliver to the voters and to the non-voters who you hope go out and vote?
Well, the message I want to deliver is if you were hiring for a job, wouldn't you want the most experienced candidate, the only one who's actually to date running that completed one term, when in fact I completed 3 terms, which none of my opponents have completed one. I've served on every committee of the commission, the finance, the land use, and the neighborhoods. And to survive 3 terms in Miami Beach and to avoid any type of scandal or problem as I have, and still have the trust of the residents and the neighborhood associations speaks volumes. So I'm hopeful that people look beyond the flashy messages and the things people do in Miami Beach, drive around with like big cars with signs on them, or pay a bunch of people that don't live in our city to run around and hand out your literature, or send text messages or mail pieces that say lies, because a lot of them, quite frankly, are lies or half-truths, and look to the person that they know who's been serving them since 2006.
That's quite a career so far. I was on Miami Beach a few weeks ago, and it seems as though there's a lot of traffic and a lot of people and a lot of buildings. So I talk about 2 things. One, future growth in Miami Beach. Is it in or on? In Miami Beach. And also, tell me about the school system that's there.
Yes, well, I told you about public safety. This is actually the next reason I'm running. Resident quality of life and traffic and overdevelopment play into that. Another thing that makes me different from my opponents is I haven't been supporting these big buildings. You might recall on the news last year that the voters rejected the Deauville high-rise and the Lincoln Road office buildings. Well, one of my opponents put those on the ballot. Another one of my opponents was the face of the campaign. I have always been for the residents. You know, clearly everybody needs reasonable development, but Miami Beach is an island community. We shouldn't be competing with City of Miami to put giant high rises throughout the city. And there is a bit of a correlation to traffic. Traffic has gotten a lot worse. In the area where I live on Collins Avenue and Mid Beach, there were times this past year where you were trapped. Literally, you couldn't leave your house. It would take you an hour to go 2 or 3 miles from Mid Beach to South Beach. So we need to really keep in check how development can impact traffic. But at the same time, we also need to work with the state and county to come up with better solutions. The state controls Collins Avenue. The county controls the traffic light calibration. We all need to work together with these groups to make things better and come up with traffic solutions.
We know the county and cities and all the states that have that same issue. More traffic, more traffic. One of the things the county certainly recognizes is about mobility, because building bigger roads doesn't solve it. It's how we move people from one part of town to the next. So if you could push a magic button and you could have whatever solution that you wanted, and you could push it and it would be implemented concerning traffic, what might that be?
I would expand a program in which I was one of the original supporters of, which is our trolleys. We control that in the city. It's not like the bus system or other systems that we go to the county. We directly control that, and we've added a freebie system. And I think that they're very effective, but I would like to expand upon them and really help let the residents know that these great ways to get around the city are options. So you don't have to take your car, you don't have to look for parking, and you have a way to get from point A to point B a little faster.
And certainly short term, it's an outing. Let's go on the trolley, which is like a new thing. You look around, oh my goodness, sorry. I'm still thrilled when I get an Uber and I don't have to drive. Yeah. And when I go to Miami Beach, I take an Uber, I park my car here, and I take an Uber to my in-laws, and then we go to Miami Beach. And what a pleasure that is. So we don't have to worry about parking and the very expensive parking. And then wondering, is it going to get towed? Is it going to get wrecked? So there are other options, for people. And let's talk about the environment. Everybody's very concerned about it. We see outside it's really hot, and they're implying that there's a whole bunch of changes. And there's a story about we're pumping water in and out of the earth, and it's starting to change. We know that there are more hurricanes. We know that there's extra water going on the roadways in Miami Beach. What does this look like, and what do you think you can do about it?
I'm passionate about the environment and our resiliency programs. We talked about my first election in 2006. Well, one of the first things that I did back then in 2007 is I created our city's sustainability committee. And I was its original chair, getting to work, talking about flooding solutions and other environmental initiatives. In 2012, I was the commission sponsor on the stormwater master plan that the city has implemented to combat flooding. And I was honored to appear in Rolling Stone and a number of national publications about the program.
Wow.
So what did we do? We put in underground pumps to start collecting water off of the streets until we were able to safely and cleanly pump it out into the bay. We started working on raising seawalls because Miami Beach had and still has a number of areas where the seawalls are too low to really protect when there's high tide or the queen tides. And in certain areas where it's needed, we've raised the road. Road elevation has become controversial in Miami Beach because a lot of residential areas don't want it, but some commercial areas do. So it's really about getting in there. There's no like cookie cutter solution. But we're working on it all the time, and I'm very excited as mayor to move forward with the stormwater master plan where the city needs it most.
Maybe 10 years ago, maybe a little bit less, when we'd see these pumps going Miami Beach, it was sort of like this obscure sort of thought, what? Got these pumps? All right. And we're going, yes, something needs to be done. I was talking to Phil Steiner a couple of years ago, and he said to me, Michael, do you know there's a problem with water? He told me, I have friends that are moving out here because they know what's coming. If the city and if his mayor now and in the future don't do anything about the water coming onshore, what does that look like?
Terrible. I mean, people are investing crazy amounts of money lately. We all read it in the newspaper. We have single family homes going for $50 million, $100 million. So we are on the radar of everybody that looks to have a luxury home. But part of what keeps our city going is the fact that we have this wonderful resiliency program and stormwater master plan, and we have to keep it going forward. That will keep people watching Miami Beach, knowing that we are fighting to keep the city dry. It will keep our bond rating high. I mean, one of the issues that everybody's facing, it's not just Miami Beach, is insurance. And certainly in Miami Beach, insurance prices are doubling, tripling, quadrupling in some cases. So we need to let insurers know that we're doing everything possible as well to keep our city safe.
And recently we celebrated, or we acknowledged the 2-year anniversary of the collapse of the Surfside condominium. And nearly 100 people died and thousands of lives were affected, family and uncles and everybody. And so the county enacted some new rules concerning inspections on buildings. What has the city done?
Well, the city is somewhat limited because most condominium issues run through state law. I'm a condominium lawyer, by the way, Florida board certified. But the state passed a number of significant changes last year. You now have to do a milestone inspection as to the structural integrity of your building earlier than you did before. The state has changed the rules regarding reserves. They've expanded the amount of elements that buildings have to reserve for. And they're saying that after the end of 24, buildings can no longer vote to waive reserves the way we have in the past. Now, the city and the county have filled in where they can. We've passed laws requiring inspections, and certainly Miami Beach, like all local governments, has gotten stricter about making sure that people are taking their violations seriously and are moving to cure them. There's a lot more work and I guess pressure on engineers to really get out there because they have to vouch for the integrity of buildings. But Miami Beach, I'd say half of our residents probably live in condominiums. So the fact that I work in the industry, I think is a benefit to our residents because we're able to be on the front line of solutions.
And people want to know that the government is protecting them. Mm-hmm. We don't want you in our bedrooms, but we want to feel protected, and then would point to the government if it fails. So this new condominium laws enacted by the state and the city looking after making sure it's certainly something that can protect people, even if they don't like it right now, they'll be happy.
I think so. And I think at the city level, we have a responsibility to educate our residents about these new laws and what they can do. And we have a lobbying team up in Tallahassee to fight for what's good for our residents. So to the extent that issues impact condominium or single-family homeowners, we're on the front line as the mayor of a city like Miami Beach. It's not just what happens in Miami Beach, it's what happens in the county, state, and federal governments. And I'm going to be there on the front line fighting for our residents wherever I need to be.
Michael, we know that seniors love you. Why is that? I want to know the truth of this is, why do they love you so much?
I love our senior community. As soon as I got elected, I embraced them completely, Michael. I created a seniors committee, which exists in the city, and it's aired on the city cable station. It's made up of members, senior citizens that live in multiple different buildings throughout the city, because I felt that seniors needed a real voice at the table in City Hall, needed to have access to programming and events. Another reason is I noticed that South Beach had a lot of lunch centers for low-income seniors where North Beach didn't. So in 2018, I sponsored a senior lunchroom at the Unidad Senior Community Center where we feed, I think it's up to like 250 seniors daily, Monday through Friday, a hot lunch. It's something the city provides. And I feel that that is one of the best things that I've done to be able to provide a hot meal to people that need it is it makes you feel good, like you've done right.
And when the recipient gets that, they feel cared for, and people are paying attention to, and they feel better. When they feel better, they don't get as sick as often. Those are just facts, all right? Yeah. When they're out there, they go visit their friends. One time recently, I went to a HMO, and I sat and watched what happened. They have all the seniors there, and they were playing dominoes and all this stuff. I said, this is perfect. And while they're there, they also go see the doctor, right? Yeah. But we see that the socialization really helps people. And I'm glad you're doing that, because we need to pay attention to them, because one day they're going to say, gee, the city took care of me. What's that guy's name? He was the one that did that.
Well, we're all going to be there someday. So I hope that people are there focused on me when I get to be that age.
So you had mentioned that you'd been elected 3 different times.
Mm-hmm.
It must feel really good to be able to do that and to be able to have the faith and the confidence in you. But why do they continue to vote for you?
Trust. I think people trust me. I've served the longest of the people that have been in office recently, and I go way back to 2006. So they saw me grow up almost at the commission meetings. I started in my mid-30s. Now I'm pushing it on the mid-50s. So I grew up with the city. I've always been very vocal about my votes and my reasons why I vote for things. I like to educate residents that watch our commission meetings on the items. You know, it's very confusing sometimes when you're there and you hear somebody call up, oh, R7A, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. Somebody makes a motion and the item goes on. I always try to take it back, and most certainly on my items, and give a brief explanation. This is what this item's about. This is why I've put this on the agenda. And the same when I vote against items. You know, I've had to be the voice, the sole voice sometimes. I mean, I voted against a height increase on Alton Road, which I was alone on, and I had to sit there and explain to people why I felt it was too much.
And what is it like when you're up there and you feel you're being pulled by some residents over here, and then you have not in my backyard over here, and then you have the property owner says, I want this over here, and then you have the commission on different levels, and the audience is, and it's filled with people, and you're there, and you go, okay, how am I going to express my view, stay true to me, understand what the people want, all right? And sometimes it's not necessarily what they want, because you have this bigger picture, but what overall would be good. What is that like? Do you get like little turmoil in your head on how you're going to handle it?
Well, of course, there's times when you are turmoiled or stuck and you're not sure which direction is best. But I've always read the material carefully, met with the staff before the commission meetings, met with anybody, quite frankly, who wants to meet with me. My door is always open because I think the more information and viewpoints you have, the better decision you make. But at the end of the day, when I go in there, I vote my conscience. I vote what I think is right. You have to tune out, attacks on social media. You have to tune out people that supported you in your campaign. They may not be on the right side of the issue. You have to vote what is true for you. And if you do that, number one, you'll sleep well at night. But number two, I think that the voters remember that about you. And I hope they remember that about me.
Good. I do want to touch on the rail. I forget the name of it. It's going to go from the mainland to Miami Beach. What's the status of that?
Of which project?
Where near where the Miami Herald, it's not Metro Rail, whatever they call it. What is the latest on that?
The Metro Mover extension.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It came through the city this year looking for a resolution and support, and it became very controversial with certain neighborhood associations. The City of Miami Beach Commission didn't take an action. So my understanding is it's now at the county, and it's a county project for the county commission to vote on. I haven't heard about it going on an agenda because I believe when it does, people will be out there expressing their views and fighting for it one way or the other.
And I think that's important for people to hear about it and get out there and do their best pitch, whatever side they're on. But certainly that type of mass transit, I'm not saying there, but across the county is pretty essential on how to handle things. So here we are, the almost July 1st. The election's when?
November 7th, 2 weeks of early voting before, and absentee ballots probably will go out like mid-October, which the election starts when you receive your ballot.
So lots of people don't remember that there used to be a time it would be 1 day and there would be lines, and then it was a 2 week. And so now, to your point, absentee ballots go out, and by the time people get it, pretty much they know what they're going to do. And I urge people, when they get their absentee ballots, fill it out and mail it, because it'll get lost in your shuffle, and before you know it, you forgot about it. So when they get it, you study the candidates before they go out, look you and whoever else is running and say, do I like this person? Are they going to get us where we think that we should go? And I wish you lots of good luck there. And thank you for serving all of us in Miami-Dade County.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Folks, thank you for joining us again. Michael Gongora, who would love to be your mayor of the city of Miami Beach. Thanks again, folks.